Hey, it's Matt here with Peppercoat Barbecue, and welcome back to the Peppercoat Deck. If you have a kettle or a Kamado type grill, then you've probably saw these hyped up videos about the Chefs Temp S1 and the Breezo fan setup. Well, today we're hooking that up to the Oklahoma Joe's Bronco, and we're going to find out if it really works. Spoiler alert, the hype is real, and I'm going to show you why. I couldn't find any videos with the Chefs Temp S1 and the Breezo attached to the Oklahoma Joe's Bronco, so I wasn't sure if it would work. So I reached out to Chefs Temp and just inquired, one, if it would work, and two, I couldn't find any videos on the internet, told them about my channel. Thanks to the people at Chefs Temp, they were nice enough to send me this starter kit from their ecosystem so I could share with you how this works on the Oklahoma Joe's Bronco. So thanks, Chefs Temp. So what I'll be using and reviewing today is the S1 Chefs Temp Smart Thermometer, and this can be used as a standalone digital thermometer if you're just looking for a digital upgrade. They also sent the Breezo fan, which is an attachment that is used in conjunction with the S1 to regulate the ambient temperature in your smoker. They sent 2 probes and a charging station that will actually charge 4 probes, so there's room for upgrades and to add more probes. And the S1 can be used with up to 4 probes to track the internal temperature of whatever you're smoking. The Breezo has a simple universal installation, but you will need to attach the included spring before installing it to your smoker. But it's a Breezo. Remove the nut from the OKJ Bronco's intake damper, then insert the spring at the bottom of the Breezo into the intake opening. I did have to turn this around later because I realized the power wire didn't have clearance. Yes, the Breezo does require a power source, but think about the extra cost that there would be if you had a battery large enough to pull this fan for these long overnight cooks, plus the extra weight would make it really hard to mount. The Breezo comes with mounting brackets that fit Kamado style intakes and some heat tape if you have any sealing issues. I didn't use these, but the Breezo wasn't extremely secure. I bumped into it and knocked it off while filling the charcoal basket, and since I have some pesky raccoons that like to pillage my deck at night, I taped it to the intake. To install the hub, you simply remove the old Oklahoma Joe's temperature gauge that always registers 30 degrees below temperature, probably due to its incredibly short design. Then replace it with the hub, which has a much longer probe but still allows for plenty of clearance for the deflector plate or even using 2 grates. The main unit twists and locks into the base. You will need to download the app, and you have the choice of connecting through Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. I would strongly recommend using the Wi-Fi connection for reasons that we'll talk about in a few minutes. Now, the app is loaded with options and features, which can seem a little overwhelming at first, especially if you're not tech savvy like me. You can choose to add devices such as your probes, set internal temps with a ton of presets, or you can create your own custom temps. You can set your desired smoker temperature with a high and low warning, which I never needed. You can control the fan, which I just set it and let it take care of itself. You can choose the sound of your alarms. You can choose light or dark mode for the app, which is nice for these overnight cooks. You can even compensate for temperature fluctuations if you need to, although Chefs Temp advises against this. Once I was connected, I started running some tests. I lit some charcoal, set the charcoal basket in the smoker, and closed the lid without giving it any time to get started. I set the Breezo to 250 degrees. I left the Breezo vent open 2 clicks and my Oklahoma Joe's Bronco exhaust open all the way. I didn't know what would happen, but to my surprise, after just a few minutes and some thick smoke, it cleared up, and I expected it to blow by the 250 degree mark, but at 219 degrees, the fan started pulsing, adjusting the airflow, and it locked in dead on 250 degrees.
Amazing.
I used an old but proven ambient probe to test the temperature inside the smoker, and they were very close. The S1 was setting probably about 6 inches closer to the fire, so that would account for any difference. The temps held steady. I mean, within a 10-degree fluctuation of that 250-degree mark that we had set. So I wanted to throw some curveballs in there. At this point, I opened the vent on the side of the Breezo all of the way. When you do that, no fault of the Breezo, but it has no way to control the airflow. So the temperature shot to over 300 degrees in the Oklahoma Joe's Bronco. So I shut the Breezo vent down all the way. I closed my exhaust on the Bronco to try to smother out the fire, which I typically do at the end of the cook. I wanted to see if it completely closed off the airflow, and it did. And to make sure that this thing was truly battle tested, once my Joe cooled down to about 170, 175, I clicked the Breezo vents, opened a couple of notches, opened up the exhaust, turned the fan back on, and to my surprise, within just a few minutes, we were rocking steady at 250 again with a nice clean smoke. I was impressed. At this point, I was feeling pretty confident. So the next day, I packed my charcoal basket full of a mix of briquettes, lump, and a few chunks of cherry and pecan, so it would be ready for a long overnight cook. I grabbed a Boston butt, gave it a light trim, coated it with salt and pepper, and let it dry brine for about 12 hours. At 11:30, I lit the fire. I set my ambient temperature to 250 degrees. I left the Breezo fan open one click on the vent. I set the internal temperature to 203 degrees on the butt. I put it on the smoker at midnight, and I went to bed. Good morning, and I hope you slept as good as I did. Man, this is unbelievable. And I've probably already said this earlier in this video, but typically with the Oklahoma Joes, I might get up and adjust the temp once or twice during the night. And typically I will only let it go for 6 hours before I pull and wrap. But man, we're rocking steady 8 hours now. This thing stayed probably within a 10 to 15 degree range. Man, no complaints. This is absolutely fabulous. So I'm going to pause my fan, and then we're going to see what everybody's been wanting to see, what we look like after 8 hours. The bark was incredible, and you can see there's still moisture on top of this butt even without spritzing. So I wrapped it in butcher paper, replaced the probe, and decided that I would finish this cook on the smoker instead of in the oven like I typically would. While this was wrapping up, I wanted to do one more test, and that was on the Wi-Fi connection. And this is why I believe that you should choose to connect through Wi-Fi. Now, overnight, there was no disconnects. The morning that I got up, I walked around the yard. There was no disconnects. So I really wanted to give this a test. I got in my truck, drove to my local grocery store. Now, granted, it's only 1.1 miles from the house, but absolutely no disconnects. You can even see it updating from the parking lot.
What is this electronic wizardry?
So we hit that 203 degree internal temperature. It's been over 10 and a half hours total. And sign me up for the Chefs Temp fan club, or maybe the Breezo club is what we could call it, because I'm a fan. This thing's awesome. I've had this smoker open one time in the last 10 and a half hours, and that was to wrap and put the butt back in here. I've made no adjustments. Man, the hype's real. This is so great. So I'm going to pull this off. I got my oven set to 150 degrees. I'm going to hold this for probably about the next 5 to 6 hours, and then we'll have some barbecue for dinner. It's been about 6.5 hours that we've been resting. I still have my internal probe in here. We've come down to 149 degrees in that internal temperature. The battery here on the Chefs Temp S1 is still showing only 1 bar of a battery has been used, and this thing's been going since midnight last night. So about 17 plus hours, I guess. Battery life's great. But let's see what we have. Other than eating barbecue, my favorite part is unwrapping these after a long cook and a rest. And this one turned out picture perfect. So after taking a few glamour shots, I pulled it, gave it a quick chop, and made this delicious pile of barbecue. So the barbecue's good, but come on, we knew the barbecue was going to be good, right? I wanted to know if this Chefs Temp S1 was good, and let me tell you, it's good. All right, this thing just again blew my mind. Can't say that enough. Paired up with the Breezo and then with the probe that they sent also. Man, this is a combination that really just knocks it out of the park. Now, is the value there? With everything they sent me, I'll put the total up here on the screen, but just going through in my head with what they sent me was probably close to $250. You don't need 2 probes, so you can knock $50 off of that. So for about $200, you could have this set up. This can be moved across to different grills that you have. You can even buy an extra base that goes into the grill, so you don't have to take that in and out. So that would help out a little bit. But think about it this way. For the cost of $200, which is about an average hotel room, I was able to get a great night's sleep and not have to worry anything about the smoker. So when you look at it that way, is it a value? Absolutely. Getting the sleep every time that I cook is the same cost as one night in a hotel room, then yeah, I think the value is there. So that's my analysis. Hope you enjoyed the video. Check out everything else we got going on here at Peppercoat Barbecue, and I'll see you next time.